Sean Ray from MuscularDevelopment.com. I'm joined by the Hall of Famer Flex Wheeler and David Bay. We are here in Las Vegas to preview the 52nd Mr. Olympia, promoted by Joe Weider, actually, and Robin Chang is also producing this competition. But Flex, 1965, this competition started in Brooklyn, New York. The year we were born. Larry Scott won the first two, and of course we know the rest is history. They've got 13 champions, and right now Phil Heath is hanging on with his 5th consecutive victory, going for number 6 this weekend, and the laundry list of guys competing against him to take that title is long. But what do you have to say about the champion? There was some controversy from the fans that a lot of them thought the 45-year-old last year, Dexter Jackson, may have been able to take that title away. Dexter's now a year older. He's got another title to his credit, the South African Arnold Classic. Phil Heath has been very quiet, hasn't competed, waiting for this opportunity to go after that $400,000. What are his chances?
I mean, for me, it's this game to lose. He won last year. He won the year before that. He's going for a 6th title. So for me personally, until someone comes and beat him, he's a champion standing there right now. That's why everybody's aiming for him, and he's not aiming for them. So I have him winning until somebody presents something tomorrow to change my image on that. Just knowing Phil personally and texting back and forth from him, I know personally that he's taking it all personal, and he's actually now competing against his best. And that's what he's trying to bring back to stage and set everybody up and everything like that. So I'm really excited to see the best Phil Hill ever. It's like when you watch Usain Bolt. You don't want to see him shut down 10 meters before the 100-yard dash. You want to see him blast. I want to bear witness to that and see how great that could be.
Absolutely. He referred to Phil Heath as Phil Hill. That tells you how old Flex is.
Damn.
That's okay, man. We're old, man. Phil Hill, for those of you that don't know, was back in the 80s. Anyways, but to Flex's credit, are we going to see a repeat of last year with Dexter and Phil? Because he said it's Phil's contest to lose, but who's he going to actually lose to?
You know, I don't really think we're going to see a repeat as far as it being as close as it is. And I don't mean to disrespect Dexter in any fashion, but I'm with Flex that I think we're going to see a really good version of Phil Heath. He's had a couple of questionable wins, and anybody who's competed at any level, you know, when people start questioning you, it either breaks you or it lights a fire. And with Phil Heath, I think it's really lit a fire. It was close last year, and I would have been fine with Dexter Jackson winning last year. The year before, personally, I thought Shawn Rhoden had it over, over Flex or over Phil and Kai. So it's going to be a close contest. I think Rhoden could win. I think Dexter could win. You know, there's a handful of dark horses that I think could come up and do some damage. But until Phil Heath comes out and is really off, I'm going with Phil as the winner.
Right, and we can predict all day long with the top 3. There's some good players in here. Big Rami's got a lot of things to prove. If I'm not mistaken, in the offseason, he underwent some kind of sickness or an ailment or whatever that he's actually recovering from, and that could affect
hamstring injury.
Hamstring injury. So how would that affect the economy of his preparation?
You know what? I mean, I've been there, more times than once with a broken neck and car accident and all that stuff. So, you know, I think truly a champion is proven not when he wins. A champion is proven when he goes through adversities and still comes through. And that makes you a champion standing there. But it's no argument across the board. Every judge and everything else, if Rami nails it, everybody's going to have hell to pay. We're just waiting to see if that actually happens yet, and we won't know until the first 5 seconds on stage. Veterans like us, we already know.
Right.
It just takes 5 seconds on stage, but I don't get caught up in these pictures people post before, during, and after, because it don't mean shit. We've been there when we look greater going into a show, and that didn't happen. So I don't get caught up in all that. Give me 5 seconds, or like my boy said, give me 2 seconds of daylight, and then we got it figured out.
He's absolutely right. So what would that leave a guy like you said, Shawn Rhoden? Can he beat somebody as big as Big Rami if Rami comes in dialed in?
You know, I think Rami last year overseas after the Olympia actually placed ahead of Rhoden at a show or two. So when Rami's at his best, when Rami's if he's at his best, I think he can win. You know, but he hasn't been at his best. So you know, we can do a lot of hypotheticals, like Flex said. We can talk about these pictures come up. His face is more sunk in. Absolutely, Rami can beat Shawn Rhoden. But Shawn Rhoden at his best, and you know, there's been a lot of talk that Shawn's put on a pretty fair amount of muscle over the last year. Shawn has the structure to beat everybody up there. Does he have the size? Does he have the conditioning? Well, the conditioning's been there. That's a consistent for Shawn Rhoden. You know, his stomach was a little washed out last year. That was the big talk about what happened with Shawn Rhoden last year. He came out, maybe tried to fill out a little bit too much. But, you know, those top 4, and I don't want to show any disrespect to anybody else in this lineup, because I think these guys, but I think if we're talking Phil Heath, Dexter Jackson, Rami, and Shawn Rhoden, if any of those 4 guys slip and one of them is really at 100%, I think any of those guys can win, you know, and you start going a little bit further down the line, I don't know that those guys really have what it takes to walk away as a champion ahead of those guys. I mean,
let me stop you there, because going a little bit further down the line, we are talking about guys that won to get here. Justin Compton, Dallas McCarver, big Cedric McMillan, which nobody's really talking about. Can Cedric be the X factor if he shows up? He prepared for this show a year ago and never made it to the stage.
I mean, Cedric definitely can be an X factor and being a dark horse and coming in here. You know, it's about who's the best at that time. And, you know, again, I have to lock on who has repetitively kicked ass and done their job. I can't go too far off and say a what if on a person who hasn't really done it.
Cedric almost won the Arnold Classic in Ohio against Kai Green.
Against Kai Green, definitely. And it was very argument. Yeah. And it was very good argument. But this is a whole different stage. You yourself have competed multiple times, and we can look good in one part of the year and not the other year. So I still got to lock on to what you've always said. Flex, it don't really matter if you won the Arnold. Yeah. Bring that shit to the Olympia and prove it there. So it don't matter who won what show anywhere else. You got to bring it here to make it really happen.
Well, I mean, you can't argue that. And speaking of bringing it here, have we seen Rolly Winkler bring it here yet? Because he's always qualified for this show. Yeah. So where's he at now?
You know, Rolly had a good year. He looked good in New York. He's one of these guys where I don't know that we've ever even seen Rolly at 100%. He always looks like he could just be a little bit tighter. I don't think you could say he could be a little bit bigger. His posing could use a little bit of work. But a really razor-sharp Rolly, that's another hypothetical situation we can talk about all day because it hasn't happened. Can he challenge those top guys if that was the case? If Rolly came out like super diced, I think he's a first call-out guy. I think he's pushing those guys. Yeah. But it's another question mark. I mean, you can have the same question mark with Dallas McCarver, Justin Compton, all these guys. I mean, and that's why it's the Olympia, the best of the best. And it sounds so cliche, you know, when we talk about over and over, it's just a matter of who brings it on show day. But all of these guys are so good. That's exactly what it comes down to.
Well, there's a lot of speculation. There's still a lot of unanswered questions because, like you said, talking about the guys that bring it, the Dallas McCarvers and the Justin Comptons. You have some other guys, Josh Lenarkowitz from Australia. William Bonac coming over here from Belgium. Is he from Belgium? There's a lot of guys in this contest worthy of conversation, but right now I think we're all in agreement in terms of about the top 5 or 6 guys. Someone may just pop up and surprise us all. Those questions are going to be answered literally 24 hours from now because we're going to come back on Friday night with the prejudging that starts at 7 p.m. at the Orleans Arena. And, of course, we're going to have all the handicapping of that and see where our 52-year-old comeback kid, Kevin Levrone, winds up, how he fares. I think we're all in agreement that win, lose, or draw, Kevin Levrone is inspired and ignited something in all of us sitting in the cheap seats, the athletes that are sitting on the stage with him, bridging the generational gaps of what can be done physically, because we didn't think he could physically even get here. He's a winner regardless of what happens on the stage.
He's already won, and you can tell by the respect. I mean, I think that's another great thing for all the athletes that are up there, showing him the respect that he deserve and everything like that, the inspiration he's done. And I mean, it even goes further than that. He pushes me just at 52. He's a year older than me. And to look that good, that makes me want to go back home and train and take better care of myself. So I think he's going to, no matter what, it's going to be a win-win scenario for him.
Right, and I've been pretty black and white on Kevin Levrone in terms of actually competing and winning. And my stance was there's no way in hell he can win this show. I've been wrong before. But the one thing that he did prove right to me was that he set his mind to something, he can do it, which is what our sport's all about. Watching those guys, those examples, and taking that home with you and trying to do something with your own economy.
Yeah, no, talking about Kevin, the big talk that I've been putting out there is we got to wait until we see him standing next to other guys.
We just saw him.
Yeah, you guys are going to see it in the press conference video. We got to see him stand next to Josh. We got to see him stand next to Cedric. Now, those are 2 big boys with huge frames, and Kevin didn't look small. I mean, in his back pose, Kevin needs to dry out a little bit, but Kevin was holding his own size-wise. The big question mark, again, is going to be Kevin Levrone's legs. But I'll tell you what, he went up against 2 guys with huge frames and stood there and looked pretty damn good. Yeah. So, it's going to be interesting. The other thing we got to talk about here a little bit, 212. I mean, we got a hell of a show lined up in 212. They weren't included in the press conference, but definitely is going to be interesting. Flex Lewis going for 5.
Going for number 5. Flex Lewis on paper is like Phil Heath on paper. Unless he's challenged and rivaled by somebody we haven't seen, he should probably be number 6.
Right. Again, I have him as a champion. He's run considerably well in his 5 championships that he's had so far. So you just have to give respect to a person who does that. Again, going back to us, as long as we competed, I wasn't always in my highest percentile, so I got to give respect to a person who's been in their high percentile for over a number of years. You have to give that respect, and a what if don't really apply to somebody else, because you can what if and say, what if he's 10 times better?
Right.
So I got to give Flex that respect and say, as going in this champion, it's his show to lose.
Well, on paper, he's being thrown the competition, the same competition from the Hidetada Yamagishis, the Eduardo Correas, the Jose Raymonds. Who are we throwing in the mix that may challenge him? Because we know who's already beaten and defeated for the past 5 years. Is there an X factor coming in?
Well, there's a new guy in the mix this year. We saw him win in Tampa, Ahmad Ashkanini. He's one of the guys that trains out at Oxygen Gym. Now, I was in Tampa. When he walked out on stage by himself, the first thing I put in my play-by-play is this is a guy that can push Flex Lewis and Jose Raymond. He looked absolutely incredible standing by himself. When you put him in the lineup, all that muscularity that he had, it faded a little bit. He wasn't as structurally as large as he appeared to be by himself. But he's still a guy that I think can be top 5 in this 212 lineup. Can he push Flex Lewis for the title? That I'm not really sure of.
He actually won the Arnold Classic in Australia to get his pro card, and then he went on to win Tampa, Florida. But I don't know that he's in that conversation. He's got to get through Jose Raymond and Hidetada Yamagishi. I mean, this is a contest where I think the same players are still battling for literally the same positions.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go through Eduardo also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this 212 lineup is excellent. I mean, as far as the big players, you have Eduardo Correa, you have Charles Dixon, you have Jose, you've got Guy Cisternino, who was texting me the other night. Guy is hot right now because he feels like he's not getting the respect. Guy Cisternino is on fire. And if he shows up really razor sharp, now Guy shows up good. He's got shredded glutes. He's in good shape. If he shows up razor sharp, super dry, like we saw him in Chicago in 2013, with the size he has now, he's one of those guys that can push up into the top, 4 or 5 spots. Can he beat Flex Lewis? I don't know. He thinks he can.
When and where is that prejudging taking place?
Okay, guys. So the prejudging tomorrow is going to be, actually prejudging for 212 got moved to Friday night. It's with the Men's Open. So we're going to have a handful of the events tomorrow at 10:30. Then finals are, you guys can check back to the forums for the schedules. Finals for some of the events and prejudging for Men's Open and 212 going to be at the arena. We're back at the Expo Hall Saturday morning for more prejudging. Back to the arena Saturday night for finals. But
a lot going on, a bit busy weekend. Make sure you stay tuned to musculardevelopment.com, where we're bringing you the play-by-play, photos, interviews, the whole 9 yards, and we'll definitely recap tomorrow's prejudging tomorrow night at the Orleans Arena. But for right now, we just wrapped up the press conference here, and a whole lot of stuff was going to be popping off this weekend live from the Orleans Arena. For David Bay and Flex Wheeler, I'm Shawn Ray, musculardevelopment.com.